Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have one daily sheet. I think I need another one. And can the witnesses approach the bench, please? Raise your right hand. Do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel could identify themselves for the record, please.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to introduce Team Blue. My name is Isaac Neary. I will be conducting the direct examination of Angel Francisco as well as the cross-examination of Kennedy Quick, and I'll be delivering the closing statement to you today. Portraying Angel Francisco is Emmy Hines.
Hi, Your Honor. My name is Caitlin Matthews. Today I'll be conducting the direct examination of Remy Hartman, the cross-examination of Beckett Starr, and delivering the opening statement. Today, portraying Remy Hartman is Andrew Sample. Hello, Your Honor. My name is Megan Rake. I will be conducting the direct examination of Bobby Day, as well as the cross-examination of Shelby Banks. Today, Bobby Day is being portrayed by Brooke Sedlock, and our timekeeper is Naomi Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel, for the defense.
Your Honor, my name is Scout McMahon. I will be doing the opening statement. I will be doing the cross-examination of Angel Francisco and the direct examination of Quick.
Your Honor, my name is Jillian Mayer. I will be doing the cross-examination of Remy Hartman, the direct examination of Beckett Starr, as well as the closing statements.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Emily Hove. I will be doing the cross-examination of Bobby Day and the direct examination of Shelby Banks.
Your Honor, I am Sophia Dykheisen, and I will be performing the witness role of Shelby Banks.
Your Honor, I'm Hans Dennison, and I will be doing the witness statement of Kennedy Quick.
Your Honor, I'm Thomas Knopka, and I will be portraying Beckett Starr as well as being the timekeeper.
We're ready to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. May I address a few pre-trial
Yes.
matters? Permission to move about the well when delivering statements
Yes.
and when giving questions. Thank you, Your Honor. And may I inquire into your preference for asking permission to approach the witness?
I'd say ask the witness when you first approach, and if that is okay, then continue to approach without asking.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the defense would also request to move about the well for the duration of opening closing.
Your request is granted. Any other preliminary matters?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, let's proceed.
We're here today because the defendants Beckett Starr and Shattuck High School published a false and defamatory article that caused Angel Francisco's life to be torn apart. May it please the court, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, counsel. We're here representing the plaintiff because the defendants have defamed her, causing her to lose her dream scholarship. We're here to fix that injustice and to set the full truth of the story straight. But to do that, we need your help. At the end of today's trial, we will ask you to find the defendants liable for failing to uphold the most basic tenets of journalistic integrity. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Angel Francisco, the plaintiff here today. The young, promising athlete has been dedicated to basketball for as long as she can remember. So, as a senior, when she had the opportunity to create a senior project for school credit, she jumped at it. Her idea? A reconciliation basketball game between her high school and the crosstown rival, Shattuck. She wanted to rekindle a friendly rivalry between schools, and she was invested in the success of this game. So she spent countless hours coordinating logistics and seeking permissions, all so it could go off without a hitch. And it was going to. The game day was set for January 8th. The community was going to be run together in a safe, friendly, and fun environment. And on game day, everything started off as planned until just minutes into the third quarter, Shelby Banks, a player from Shattuck High School, punched Angel Francisco in the face. Angel, stumbling and blinded by this punch, pushed the Shattuck player out of the way. Now, that's what happened, and the crowd streamed onto the court because of it. Because of Shelby Banks' punch, There was a fight that was instigated. Angel, wanting no further part in the altercation, left the gym immediately. Today, the defendants cannot and will not dispute the facts. The defense will say that Shelby Banks punched Angel Francisco. But ladies and gentlemen, that's the problem. That's not what Mr. Starr published. Mr. Starr purposely distorted the truth to make Angel out to be the villain. But as the plaintiff, we will bring 3 witnesses to set full truth straight. We have Miss Bobby Day, the coach, who was courtside when the incident occurred, who will tell you it was Shelby Banks that instigated the fight, not Angel Francisco. And Angel Francisco was found not responsible for the events that occurred on the January 8th game. We also have Miss Francisco, the plaintiff herself, who will come to tell you the full truth of the story, to skip her voice, because Beckett Starr didn't give her a voice in the article. Beckett Starr didn't even give her a chance for an interview. She will tell you the full truth of the story. In fact, she's the only one that can tell the full truth of the story, because the story is all about her and her personal motives and her actions. And she will tell you exactly what happened because of the story's publishing. Her losing her dream scholarship to the University of Rhode Island. Lastly, we will bring Remy Hartman, a seasoned journalist, to the stand, who couldn't publish the original article because it wasn't up to journalistic ethical standards. He will tell you exactly why it wasn't up to ethical journalistic standards and why the defendants should be punished because of it. The defense will also bring 3 witnesses to stand to try to hide their irresponsible decisions and actions. They have Shelby Banks, the exact person who punched Angel Francisco in the face, who was handpicked by Beckett Starr despite having a clear bias and a personal relationship. They have Kennedy Quick, the inexperienced teacher who didn't even double check their students' work and allowed it to be published on Shattuck's behalf. They also have the person who wrote the story, Mr. Beckett Starr, who wrote it with a cramped timeline, without verifying the facts, without interviewing unbiased sources, but with an ulterior motive for a big scoop. Ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of today's trial, you will find the defendants lied about Angel Francisco. That because of the defendants' lies and their reckless disregard for the truth, Angel Francisco was harmed. She lost her dream scholarship because of the defendant's poor, irresponsible reporting. You only need to believe that the preponderance of the evidence shows the defendants are liable. And by the end of the trial, you will. We will set the full truth of the story straight, but we ask you at the end of the trial to use that truth to deliver a just verdict in favor of Angel Francisco. Thank you.
Counsel?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, may I ask permission to move this stand?
Where would you like to move it?
Just right here.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't.
This is a case about actions, not just words. May it please the court. Today, we have come to hear Angel Francisco claim that words Beckett, Starr, and Kennedy Quick published and the Shattuck Guardian have caused them harm, when in reality, it was Francisco's own actions that brought about these harms. All the defendants did was reveal that she is a bully. The evidence in this case will show that the story Beckett Starr wrote is substantially true, and that Beckett Starr followed proper ethical guidelines in both researching and writing it. We ask that you find the defendants are not liable to the plaintiff for any of the alleged harms. Here is a brief preview of the evidence you'll be hearing. Shelby will acknowledge that she and Angel were childhood friends, but that relationship waned over time due to Angel's single-minded obsession with basketball. That friendship continued to wane until Angel's freshman year, where a bust of the incident caused Angel to be accused of being involved in that incident. And the person he blamed for quote-unquote tattling to the administration is Shelby Banks. Shelby saw Angel running from the scene, and so Angel responded with both physical and verbal abuse, gathering members of the varsity team, and after a brutally rough practice, throwing basketballs at Shelby, pushing her around, and taunting her with names. Shelby moved schools, and she was so traumatized by this abuse that when she arrived home, she vomited. But Angel made sure that she would have another chance to bully Shelby by arranging the so-called reconciliation game between Table Rock and Shattuck High. Angel made sure that she would have another chance to bully Shelby, and the events of that game and the reporting of those events are at the center of this suit today. As for the game itself, you will hear some slightly conflicting accounts, but the substantial facts of the article published in the report by Beckett Starr are accurately reported, and those critical facts are not disputed. In particular, Angel herself will testify that she was called for a flagrant foul following the initial skirmish between Shelby and Angel will admit that it was her actions in challenging the referee's flagrant foul call that directly led to Table Rock fans erupting from the stands and engaging in fights. And by cursing at the referee and challenging that flagrant foul call, a direct violation of the Table Rock School's athletic policy, Angel directly instigated the fight. That is exactly what Beckett Starr reported. You will also hear from the Guardian's faculty advisor, Kennedy Quick, who has more than 30 years experience working as a reporter for a major New York newspaper and is incredibly familiar with the code of ethics and its operations. Kennedy will testify that Beckett Starr fulfilled her duties under the code of ethics and adequately investigated the facts that she reported. Beckett interviewed numerous witnesses, including her own eyewitness accounts, yes, but also those of Angel's coach, Bobby Day, Kennedy Quick, who had a front row seat to the game, as well as a confidential informant who was connected to Angel Francisco. Beckett was able to confirm that this source was a classmate of Angel Francisco's, and that the source had collected signatures with Angel Francisco that Angel used to gain school board approval for the reconciliation game. Having established a factual basis for the confidential source, Beckett simply reported what the source told her, that Angel Francisco planned to start a fight during the game against Shattuck. It is hardly defamatory to truthfully report information from a source with proven links to the source in question. The evidence will show that Beckett Starr's reporting was truthful, and that she clearly did not act with reckless disregard for the truth of the information she reported. It's also important to examine the specific evidence about the actual causes of Francisco's alleged harms. The evidence will show that the University of Oneida retracted its offers to Angel Francisco based on information provided to the university itself, not the Guardian. Therefore, Beckett Starr and the Guardian should not be held liable for harms that resulted from Angel's own actions and statement. The blame for Angel's alleged damages can be placed firmly where they only belong, on Angel Francisco herself. Thank you.
Are we ready with our first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Bobby Day to the stand. Hello, Coach. Would you please introduce yourself to the court?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Bobby Day, and I'm a coach at Table Rock High.
What's your background in basketball?
Well, many years ago, I was a high school player at Table Rock, actually. And then I moved on to a D1 college. We were pretty good, you know. And unfortunately, I blew my knee in my senior year. Unfortunate, really. But, man, that let me take up my passion for coaching. I just loved it ever since.
And as a coach, were you at that basketball game on January
8th? Of course. You know, I was the varsity coach, excuse me. And I was right there on the sidelines. I saw everything that night.
So you saw everything. Who started the fight?
Oh, it was Shelby Banks, 100%.
How did we get to that?
Well, my one of my players, Angel Francisco, started up a reconciliation game for her senior project.
And how are you involved in this senior project?
She chose me to be her senior advisor, which really I would just overlook stuff that she proposed. You know, she ran everything past me. Excuse me, sorry.
And what exactly was her senior project?
It was to get Shattuck and Table Rock High back competing against each other. You know, after a little incident back in 2017, a bus tipping incident went down.
So is that why the two schools needed to be brought together?
Yeah, it was.
And what happened because of this bus tipping incident?
Well, after the bus tipping incident happened, you know, the games were suspended. So we didn't have any competition between Shattuck or Table Rock High. And that's really what Angel's project was about, was to get that rivalry started up again, you know. 3 years back, we had some bad blood, you know, unhealthy rivals, but that was 3 years ago. We got new players, and it's time to get that rivalry back up and going again.
And going back to that suspension of crosstown athletics, what did you think of it?
You know, I thought it was needed at the time. Like I said, there was some bad blood going on, you know, some prank wars. It got pretty rowdy. But, you know, it's 3 years later. We got new players, you know. It's just time to get that rivalry up and going again.
So did the board approve this reconciliation game happening?
Of course, they loved it.
And what did Angel do to make sure something like that bus tipping incident didn't happen again?
She took the proper precautions, you know. She proposed that we play the game in a neutral location, and even proposed that we have extra security in case stuff got a little rowdy.
Well, with all of that, tell me more about what led up to the altercation.
Well, you know, right off the bat, both teams played super aggressive, you know. It was just 3 years. That's a long time to not compete against each other. And, you know, I encourage my players to play with passion and intensity. Every one of them, even Angel.
So when did the fight break out?
In the third quarter, while Angel was going for a layup, Shelby Banks, bam, hit her right in the face. It was crazy.
Well, then what happened?
After that, the fans started rushing the court, and a little brawl broke out. It was crazy. Angel, she got out of the gym as fast as she can. You know, she just got smacked in the face, and I followed to see if she was okay.
Was Angel Francisco okay?
No, she just got smacked in the face by Shelby Banks, and the project that she's been working months for just went down the drain in a couple of seconds.
Was there any publicity around this basketball game?
Yeah, there was a Shattuck student named Beckett Starr wrote an article about the altercation.
I apologize, Your Honor, permission to approach the witness of the exhibit 1. Let the record reflect I am Shattuck closing counsel. And is this that article you talked about?
It is. This is the article that I mentioned.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of that article?
I would say so, yes.
Your Honor, motion to admit what has previously been marked as Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your
Be
Honor.
admitted as exhibit 1.
Thank you. Now, Coach, what did you think of this article?
You know, it was hard to read. One of my players was being defamed in this article. The facts that are in this were simply untrue. Her character was being wrecked by Beckett Starr. And, you know, the funny thing is, I'm even misquoted in here. So it's clear that Beckett Starr wrote a terrible article.
And Coach, what happened in the aftermath of the game?
Well, in the aftermath of the game, the students who were involved in that altercation were suspended for 2 days.
What about Angel Francisco?
Angel Francisco was not suspended. It was clear to both of the school boards from Shattuck and Table Rock High that she had nothing to do with the altercation. It was Shelby Banks that threw the first punch.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Can you cross?
Coach Day, you really admire Angel, don't you?
You know, yeah, you could say that. She reminds me a lot of myself back when I was a young player in high school. But I love all of my players, you know, they're all great kids.
It's even fair to say that you live vicariously through your players, right?
You could say that a little bit, but like I said, it's mostly, I just want to give my players a place where they can show their passion on the court. That's really important to me. I want their hard work to be recognized by everyone.
And Angel is your star player, isn't she?
Yeah, after her junior year, she went through a rough patch. But she really got up and she turned into a leader. And I thought that was the perfect opportunity to let her hard work show through.
So you're pretty protective of her, aren't you?
Oh, I wouldn't say that particularly protective. Is she my player? Yes. Do I have a responsibility to take care of her? Of course.
If you could keep answers not too narrative, that'd be great.
Oh, I apologize.
On the other hand, you don't like Shelby Banks much, do you?
Well, that's a hard question. 'Cause Shelby, the game is 10% physical and 90% mental. Shelby was too stuck up in here to let her passion just shine through. She's a good kid, and I know
According to
that.
your witness statement, you think Shelby is a talented
Objection, Badger.
player.
Sustained. But you can ask the question.
If we could just keep answers not narrative and have them answer as a yes or no.
Objection, Your Honor. Opposing counsel here cannot speak to my witness in that way.
The witness is allowed on cross to answer your questions, and she has not been doing it in a narrative fashion. So I'm not sure that was your objection yet.
Thank you. And you were glad to see her leave Table Rock to go to Shedden Park.
Well, it was sad to see her leave. I saw some passion in that girl. She had the passion to make a great, great member of my team, but she decided to leave. And at the time, thinking back at it, I was glad. But now looking back at it, that was not a good part on me as a coach. But I regret that. And, I hope whatever future that she has, that she will do great in.
You're both a teacher and a coach, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a coach, you're familiar with the Table Rock School's athletic policy.
Of course, I have been coaching since 1989. Big accomplishment there, I must say.
Under that policy, part of your responsibility is
Objection, facts not in evidence.
This is just attesting to the knowledge that Bobby Day has of the athletic policy.
Overruled.
Thank you. Under the policy, part of your responsibility as a coach is to create an environment where student athletes are held accountable to standards of expectations, correct?
Yes.
But when Angel was failing a class, you were really only concerned about the affecting her eligibility for basketball, not her learning, correct?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
Can you re-ask the question, please?
But when Angel was failing a class, you were really only concerned about the affecting her eligibility for basketball, not her learning, correct?
Let me tell you something. So, would losing Angel affect my team? Of course, but I have lots of other players that are just as passionate as Angel. Now, for her grades, I was never worried. And as a teacher, I can say that I know Angel and on an academic level. She is a great student, and I had no worries about her getting up her grades. And she proved that to me. In her junior year, she was really just picking up those grades, and that's exactly why I made her captain and star of my team. She showed me that her leader position, it was good. She got the grades up, and there was no worries about it.
Regarding the bus tipping incident, you acknowledge that Angel may have been involved in that, correct?
Yeah, she may have, but kids will be kids. There's peer pressure around every corner in high school.
Coach Day, some of those questions can be answered more directly.
Regarding the reconciliation game, you viewed that as something that would be good for you and your basketball program, correct?
Yes.
Let's switch gears to the basketball game itself. That was a pretty physical game, wasn't it?
Yeah, basketball is a physical sport in nature. Every game's pretty physical.
Shelby Banks and Angel Francisco were guarding each other throughout much of the game, weren't they?
Yeah, as far as I know, Shelby was the start player for Shadow.
During the third quarter, you claimed to have seen Shelby punch Angel in the nose, correct?
I don't claim. I know. I saw it.
You thought Shelby should have been called for a flagrant foul, correct?
If punching someone in the face isn't a flagrant foul, I don't know what is.
And you started banging your chair on the floor to get the referee's attention, correct?
Yeah, it was purely out of the safety for Angel. She just got smacked in the face by Shelby Banks, and the refs weren't paying attention. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to leave my player unprotected on the court.
But they didn't call a flagrant foul on Shelby, did they?
No, they didn't, and wrongfully so.
Instead, they called a flagrant foul on Angel, correct?
which is also wrongfully so, but they did, yes.
So while the referees were watching what was happening on the court, you were busy banging your chair on the floor.
No, from my point of view, the refs weren't paying attention. My player just got punched in the face by Shelby Banks, and they did nothing about it.
Well, you were really mad, right?
You know, I was more scared, and was I angry that my player just got punched in the face? Of course I was. They were doing nothing about it.
And after the crowd came down onto the court, you left to go check on Angel, correct?
Yes.
Even though some of your other players were still on the court, correct?
You know, they were getting out of there, and my main priority was Angel. She was the one that just got smacked in the face by Shelby Banks.
Part of the reason you left was that you were afraid you couldn't control your temper, correct?
It was a very, very, very minute reason, but it is.
And you've had trouble controlling your temper in the past, haven't you?
You know, from that incident, I've learned a lot from it, and it has made me a better coach and a better person because of it.
That incident, is it the one where you got suspended for an entire year for throwing a chair during a JV basketball game?
Yes, ma'am.
On direct, you testified that Angel didn't do anything to start a fight, correct?
She didn't.
But you aren't claiming that you were watching everything that happened between Shelby and Angel on the court, are you?
You know, I was right there on the sidelines. I would see most definitely, not everything, because, you know, you got to blink and seconds pass, but yes, almost everything.
So you couldn't possibly have seen everything because you were banging your chair on the floor to get the ref's attention in the moments right before the fighting.
Absolutely not.
Weren't you?
No. That was only after Angel just got punched in the face by Shelby Banks, and I was very attentive to the game all the way up to that point. She just got punched in the face, and not much was happening at the game after the punch was thrown.
No further questions. Redirect. Thank you.
Why did you slam your chair on the ground during the game?
It was purely for the safety of Angel Francisco. She just got smacked in the face by Shelby Banks, and I didn't know another way to get the ref's attention.
And in general, what is the main focus with your players?
It's to let their passion shine through. I want to get their hard work seen by everyone.
And who started the fight?
It was Shelby Banks. She threw the first punch.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Knee, recross.
There you go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Angel Francisco to the stand. May I inquire how much time?
Yes, you have about 14 minutes.
Thank you. Ms. Francisco, would you introduce yourself to the court, please?
Yeah, hi, my name is Angel Francisco. I'm a senior at Table Rock High School.
And how long have you been playing basketball?
I mean, I've been playing basketball basically my entire life. I started playing at the park when I was like 5 or 6. Got really competitive in middle school, summer camps. And it really paid off because my freshman year I made the varsity team and I'm team captain. Honestly, it's been going pretty well. The only disappointing part is that we haven't been able to have our crosstown games the past few years.
Can you tell me why is that?
Well, in my freshman year, there was a little bit of a bus tipping incident, and the athletic directors called off all crosstown games after that.
Were you involved in that incident?
I wasn't. I did see it go down, but I was just there after the football game. I saw the bus get tipped over, wanted to make sure people were okay after that, and then I just caught a ride home with some friends.
So, speaking of the bus tipping, tell me about your senior project. How did that go?
Yeah, so my senior project was a reconciliation basketball game between the two high schools. I really just wanted to bring back that friendly competition after all those years.
And what kind of preparation did you put into this?
Honestly, I spent a lot of time on this. This was my whole senior project, and so I talked with the athletic directors of both high schools. I proposed for a neutral location and added security.
And what were your end goals for this game?
I really just wanted to reinstate that friendly competition, and I wanted to bring the community back together.
Come January 8th, was it everything you planned for?
Well, at first, yeah, the first half was going great. Everyone came out really intense, competitive. It was fun. Up until the third quarter, which is when I got punched in the face by Shelby Banks.
Let's take this altercation step by step. What led up to that punch?
Well, it was the third quarter. I was going up for a layup. Shelby fell to the ground and all of a sudden came swinging, punched me in the face. I was really shocked. I mean, punches aren't in the rules of basketball. I couldn't really see. I saw a person moving towards me, thought it was Shelby coming back for a second hit. And so I pushed them out of self-defense. I didn't know what else to do. But it turned out it was just a captain of the Shattuck team.
What happened after that punch?
After that, I mean, I just wanted to get off of the court as fast as I could. I didn't really feel like it was a good place to be anymore. I needed to calm down, so I just went back to our locker room.
Does the story end on this basketball court?
Unfortunately, no. After the basketball game, that's when this article about me got published.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness.
May.
What is previously been noted.
Can you just show counsel?
Yes, absolutely. Let the record reflect them showing opposing counsel exhibit 1. Ms. Francisco, have you read this document?
Unfortunately, many times.
Tell me, what were your first thoughts when you read it?
When I first saw this article, honestly, I was shocked. I mean, I didn't even know who Beckett Starr was before this article was published, and all of a sudden, here was this story that was all about me, and he didn't even get the facts right.
Did Mr. Starr ever interview you?
No, I was never interviewed.
To your knowledge, was there any effort by the defendants to reach out to the jury?
To my knowledge, no.
So I'm wondering, despite not being interviewed, how many times is your name mentioned in this article?
I mean, this number's been in my head for weeks now. My name's in this article 17 times, which Shelby Banks, she was actually interviewed for this, and her name's only in it 5 times. It just felt like Beckett was already giving her the benefit of the doubt.
Any specific examples of that benefit of the doubt?
Well, here in the article, it says, the fight erupted in the third quarter when Angel Francisco was allegedly punched by Shelby Banks.
Can you
But-
show, oh, excuse me.
Yes,
Can you show the jury where that use of the word allegedly is?
it's here in the 5th paragraph, 2nd sentence.
Counsel, are you moving that into as an exhibit,
Yes, I believe it's already been admitted, Your Honor.
a stipulation?
I believe.
Oh, that's right. My apologies.
No worries. And are there any other uses of the word allegedly throughout this article?
No, that was the only time, and it's funny because that punch was anything but alleged.
Do you feel this article represented you fairly?
Absolutely not. I mean, this article was all about me, and yet I was never interviewed. My side isn't shown here at all.
Who else saw this after it was published?
I mean, this article really got around the community. Shattuck Guardian, Beckett Starr was posting links to it all over Facebook and social media.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with exhibit 4.
Okay.
Let the record reflect I'm showing opposing counsel. Ms. Francisco, would you identify this document for the court, please?
This is a Facebook post by the Shattuck Guardian. There's a link to Beckett's article, a photo, and some comments from the community.
And this is a link to the article you read.
Yes, it is.
How many comments are featured in this exhibit?
There are 9 comments.
Your Honor, motion to admit what has been previously marked as exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, this is a clear case of hearsay.
May I
All
res-
of the opinions and comments on this article.
Hold
may I
on,
respond?
hold on. Any more to say about that?
Yes, Your Honor, the statements in this document are rank hearsay. We don't even know that the declarants, people making the posts, are who they purport to be. And we don't know anything about the mental state of the declarants.
Responding to counsel's last point, it has been previously stipulated and agreed to by both parties that all the documents and their contents are fair and accurate representations. Further to the hearsay argument, Your Honor, I do not believe that this exhibit qualifies as hearsay because it is an opposing party statement made by the Shattuck Guardian, an entity of defendant Shattuck High School, and none of the content in this exhibit will be used for the truth of the matter asserted by the
Your Honor, the defendant remains that this is a classic case of hearsay, and the objection remains.
The objection is sustained.
Ms. Francisco, would you tell me about what kind of public scrutiny you received after this article was published?
I mean, the public scrutiny was coming from everywhere. Everyone in the community was saying all these things about me, and I didn't really know how to handle it. They were saying these things, but they didn't even know the full story.
And Ms. Francisco, can you tell me about your scholarship to the University of United?
Well, unfortunately, after Beckett's article came out, I received a phone call and a letter from the University of Oneida, and it was around January 20th, and they informed me my scholarship and my acceptance of the recipient.
And can you tell me more about how the rescindment of your scholarship impacted you?
I mean, when I got that news, I was heartbroken. I mean, my entire life has been about basketball, and college ball has always been a dream. So when I got into my dream school and I was going to play college basketball, it was everything. And all of a sudden, it was all being stripped away from me, all because of an article that didn't even tell the truth.
No further questions on this. May I retrieve the exhibit?
Yes.
Thank you.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Let's start with the claims presented in the article by Beckett Starr. Would you agree that the game ended in a brawl that included both spectators and players?
Yeah, that was really unfortunate. My intention was always a friendly competition. So to see my senior project end in a brawl, it was really heartbreaking again.
Regarding the bus tipping incident, you admit that you were at least at the scene when this occurred, correct?
I saw what happened. I didn't push over any bus. I just made sure people were okay after it happened and then left with some friends.
So as a witness, you were quote unquote involved in that capacity, correct?
If witnessing it is involvement, then sure.
And the administration of your school suspended you for 5 games based on your quote unquote involvement in this incident, correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people were suspended because of this.
And they also suspended future athletic competition between the 2 schools indefinitely, correct?
Yeah, that's why I proposed this reconciliation game. I really wanted to see that friendly competition come back after this.
And following the bus tipping incident, you came to the conclusion that Shelby Banks must have ratted you out.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't really know. I saw Shelby when I was leaving after the football game, and at the time, it made sense that that's who it was.
And this made you angry, didn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, no one really wants to miss basketball games, and so when I thought that someone had ratted me out, I was upset.
Is it true that one of the parts you enjoy most about high school ball is that, quote, hearing your classmates cheer for you really gets your adrenaline going?
Yeah,
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Oh,
sorry, could you ask that one more time?
Is it true that one of the parts you enjoy most about high school ball is that, quote, hearing your classmates cheer for you really gets your adrenaline going?
I would say so. I think everyone really enjoys knowing that you're doing good at something you love.
Let's move into the game itself. You claim that Shelby Banks punched you in the nose in the 3rd quarter, correct?
Claim, no, it definitely happened.
And after this punch, you felt somebody touch your shoulder, correct?
I did. I thought it was Shelby coming back for a second swing.
And so you shoved that person away from you, right?
Yeah, it was out of self-defense. When someone punches you in the middle of a basketball game, which is nowhere in the rules of basketball, I mean, what else are you supposed to think?
And as it turned out, the person you shoved was not even Shelby Banks, wasn't it?
Unfortunately, no, it wasn't.
Are you familiar with the athletic policy of Table Rock School?
Probably read it my freshman year.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
you may.
I'm showing opposing counsel what has been marked for identification as Exhibit 7. Ms. Francisco, could you please identify this document?
It's the Table Rock School's athletic policy.
And is this document a true representation of that athletic policy?
It appears to be.
Your Honor, as this document has been stipulated to be true by both parties, the defendant moves to admit it into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. I do not dispute the authenticity of this document, but I do object on grounds of hearsay. This is an out-of-court document.
Counsel?
Your Honor, this is an operative fact as an athletic policy. It establishes behavioral exceptions for Table Rock, and it's a record of the school that the school has and enforces.
The objection is overruled. It's a business record of the school.
Could you please read the first 2 sentences under the section labeled fighting? It's on one of the last pages.
All of it?
Just the first two sentences.
Okay. Student athletes are expected to exercise self-control. Fighting will not be tolerated.
So when you shoved the Shattuck player, you weren't exercising self-control, were you?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
When you shoved the Shattuck player, you weren't exercising self-control, were you?
Oh, I'm gonna overrule it.
I mean, no, but I don't think Shelby Banks was exercising self-control either when she decided to punch me in the face.
But you did respond physically, yes.
After I was already injured from a punch, but yes.
And after you shoved the other Shattuck player, you were called for a flagrant foul, correct?
Yeah, and honestly, I was really confused by that because they didn't call Shelby Banks for a flagrant foul after she clearly punched me in the face.
But that part of the article written by Shelby Banks and published in The Guardian is accurate, yes?
Written by Shelby Banks?
Yes. Written by Beckett Starr.
I guess so.
Okay. And you responded to the flagrant foul call by protesting that call, right?
Yes,
And you let the ref know that you felt that was the wrong call, didn't you?
absolutely. I mean, someone just punched me. She didn't get called for a foul, and then I acted out of self-defense, and then I got called for a foul.
Right. So you thought Shelby should have gotten a flagrant foul for punching you, right?
Absolutely. That's how the rules of basketball should work.
And you used impolite language in protesting that call, yes?
Unfortunately, I did. It was not one of my proudest moments, but I was honestly so shocked that I had just gotten punched in the middle of a basketball game. It just kind of came an instinct,
So you cussed out the ref, correct?
unfortunately.
Doesn't the Table Rock School's athletic policy require, quote, total absolute respect for officials and their decisions?
Where is that in the policy? Sorry.
That would be the last two lines.
Yeah, it does say that here.
And it further says that profanity will not be tolerated, doesn't it?
It does.
So you violated both of those provisions of the athletic policy, didn't you?
Unfortunately, that happened after Shelby had also violated self-control by punching me.
Let's move on to the aftermath of the fight. You claim that you lost your scholarship and admission to the University of Oneida because of the article Beckett Starr wrote, correct?
I mean, it only made sense. They contacted me after the article was out, and the article had gotten a lot of traction by that point.
You're on permission to approach the witness. Yes. I'm showing the opposing counsel what has been marked for identification of Exhibit 6. Ms. Francisco, could you please identify this document?
Yeah, this is my letter resuming my acceptance of scholarship to the University of Oneida.
And that is a fair and accurate copy of that letter.
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, the defense moves to admit this letter into evidence.
Your Honor, objection on grounds of hearsay. This is a private document from an out-of-court setting.
Yes.
Your Honor, the authenticity of this document is stipulated, and under Rule 8038, records of a public office, such as the University of Oneida, are admissible if they set out, quote, the office's activities.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
This particular document has nothing to do with the office's activities. This is a private document sent to Angel Francisco from Tyler Winter, Dean of Admissions, and it was not intended for anyone else, nor was it made public for any reason.
Unlike the ethics policy, which is a business record, this is a record that was directly sent to Francisco, and it is hearsay. I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just a couple more questions. The fans didn't start coming out of the stands right after Shelby kicked you, did they?
Honestly, the whole thing after me getting punched was kind of a blur to me.
Well, that didn't happen until after you started cussing at the referee and disrespecting the flagrant foul call the referee made on you, right?
I mean, it all sort of happened, and then people were flooding in from the stands, and then this brawl happened.
No further questions.
Yes, briefly, Director. Ms. Francisco, would you go over the sequence of the fight again?
Yeah, of course. It was the third quarter. I was going up for a layup, and Shelby fell to the ground, came back up, punched me in the nose. I couldn't really see after that. My eyes were watering. I saw someone coming towards me. Thought it was Shelby coming back for another hit. pushed them out of self-defense, and it just turned out to be the Shattuck High School captain.
To be clear, who started the fight?
It was Shelby Banks.
Were you ever punished for involvement in the fight by school administration?
No, I wasn't. They saw that I wasn't involved in this brawl, and so I didn't get a suspension.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness.
No.
Let the record reflect I'm showing opposing counsel exhibit 7 as previously been admitted. Would you refer to the section that opposing counsel has just questioned on the fighting? Could you explain how Shelby Banks wrote this clause in the school policy?
Yeah, it says students are expected to exercise self-control and fighting will not be tolerated. I can't think of anything more clear than a punch that would be fighting and not self-control.
At the game, who broke this clause first?
It was Shelby Banks. I only acted out of self-defense after I had already been injured.
Is that what Beckett Starr published in his article?
No, Beckett said that Shelby allegedly punched me, which didn't make any sense to me.
No further questions.
Any questions, council? You may sit down.
Appointed calls Jeremy Hartman to stand. Mr. Hartman, can you please introduce yourself to the court?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Hartman. I'm a journalist, and as much as it pains me to say, I'm knocking on the door with a big 5-0 this year.
You're a journalist. How did you get into that?
Well, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, go Saints, and I spent so much time at my parents' restaurant, just talking to customers, developing this passion for getting these incredible stories out of people. So I took that, hopped up north to Massachusetts, where I got my bachelor's in communication and public policy from Hampshire College. Then I skipped the pond to London and got my master's.
What did you do after completing your master's?
Well, really the two main things were I worked for the Guardian newspaper, you might have heard of it, and I also taught a class at a local university.
You taught a class? What was that course on?
And that's all about journalism ethics, really just making sure that new journalists understood the weight their actions had, the terrible harm that lies could cause, just making sure that good journalists were doing good journalism.
And what do you know about the events that occurred subsequently to the January 8th basketball game?
Well, I came across Beckett Starr's article as it was making the rounds to the national media. Really, I thought the story was interesting, but Beckett's story, frankly, didn't meet journalistic ethics, so I edited it for my show.
Why wasn't it up to journalistic ethics?
Well, Beckett's story is chock full of conjecture. She makes so many assumptions that just aren't backed up by the facts in the article. It's practically a textbook example.
So if it wasn't up to the ethical standards, why did you bring him on your show?
Well, a central tenet of the journalistic code of ethics we follow is to correct bad journalism. So I had Beckett on my show in order to push back against the harm that he'd done already.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Exhibit 9.
Yes.
Let the record reflect I'm showing his counsel. Mr. Hartman, what is this document I just sent in front of you?
Yeah, this is the code of ethics by the Society of Professional Journalists.
And are you familiar with the contents of this document?
I mean, I taught a university class on it, so I think so.
And with your experience, can you testify truthfully?
Certainly.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of it?
Yeah.
Your Honor, motion to Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objections.
Exhibit 9 is admitted.
Thank you. Can you provide the jury some more detail on what this document is?
Yeah, so with this document, you kind of see these 4 big bolded outlines, and then a lot of bullet points. So how this works is that not every bullet point is going to apply to every story. That's just not realistic. So as a journalist, it's imperative that you follow these big, major 4 guidelines in order to stay ethical.
And what are those big bolded guidelines?
We've got seek truth and report it, minimize harm, act independently, and be accountable and transparent.
And are all journalists at all levels supposed to follow this?
Yes, completely.
Did Beckett follow seek truth and report it?
No, Beckett failed to follow seek truth and report it by not getting the entire story. He only interviewed Shelby Banks, who she happened to have a pre-existing relationship with, and failed to interview Angel Francisco in an article that was practically about Angel Francisco. Additionally, Beckett failed to explain to the reader why her anonymous source was kept anonymous. In doing this, it hides from the reader any potential biases the anonymous source may have, clouding their judgment.
And did he follow minimize harm?
No, Beckett basically wrote a hit piece on Angel Francisco, exposing her to so much undue public scrutiny. I think it's more fair to say that Beckett maximized harm.
And that next one says act independently. Did Beckett do that?
Again, it's a no. Beckett, frankly, failed to consider any potential conflicts of interest that occurred from their sources. In doing this, she allowed herself to frankly be a mouthpiece for the agenda that Shelby Banks was trying to push.
And accountable, transparent is that final one there. Did Beckett do that?
Again, it's a no. Beckett didn't justify any of the ethical decisions that she made or lack thereof, and additionally failed to account for any mistakes that she made in her article.
So did Beckett follow any of these?
Beckett followed none of them.
With your over 20 years of experience as a journalist, would you publish an article that followed none of the code of ethics?
No, this article frankly fails to be at all ethical and never would have left my desk.
At this time, no further questions.
Council?
Before I begin, can I ask how much time?
You have about 7 minutes left.
So let's start with this code of ethics. Just to be clear, with the code of ethics, you indicate that there are these headings, correct, with multiple bullet points under each.
Yeah, that's correct.
And you admit that not every bullet point is going to be met by each story, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as it says at the bottom of the document, you have to view it as a whole. So picking out individual bullet points just isn't ethical.
But you'd agree that headings like seek truth and report it aren't necessarily as specific or actually action-oriented as the bullet points underneath that heading, correct?
I disagree. I think it's important that as journalists, we follow these broader pillars because these do apply to every single story.
Right, but the code does provide these specific actions that they consider when talking about seeking truth and reporting.
Yeah, in theory, I'd also like to correct my previous statement that these should apply to every story, but they didn't apply to Beckett's.
Even though you did testify that not every story is going to realistically meet every bullet point.
What I meant was that you have these 4 broad pillars, which every story does need to follow, and Beckett's failed to.
Right. You would agree that there are numerous bullet points and numerous parts of this code that Beckett Starr doesn't, right?
You can, but as I've said, it's unethical to just cherry pick these individual bullet points to assess the ethicalness of the story.
But just to be clear, the code of ethics also indicates that it's not a legally enforceable document, right?
Well, sure, it isn't legally enforceable, but as a journalist, it's our duty to uphold the truth and frankly be the guardians of truth. So sure, it isn't illegal to be journalistically unethical, but I mean, you have to be ethical.
Let's move on to the story itself. You don't believe that this story was newsworthy, do you?
No, I don't.
But again, that's really left up to the audience to decide, right?
Sure it is, and Beckett happened to cloud the judgment of the audience in some of the ways that she wrote her article.
Just to be clear, the videos of the fight were already going viral before the Beckett Starr article, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
And let's discuss this confidential informant. You've never met that person, have you?
No, I haven't. So when I had Beckett on my show, I did give her an opportunity with which to reveal this. I didn't pressure her or anything, and she chose not to, but I do question the lack of bias in the anonymous source, as like I said, Beckett failed to explain why they were held in anonymity. So as the reader, I don't really know anything about them.
So as an answer to my question, you haven't met this person, have you?
Yes, that is correct, ma'am.
But Beckett Starr has. You met with this person?
Yes, I believe so, but I'm not sure how that testifies to lack of bias.
So assuming that Beckett Starr has met this informant, you don't have any reason to question or challenge the fact that they had this meeting, do you?
Objection, Your Honor, and speculation.
Can you answer that question, ma'am?
You don't have any reason to doubt whether or not Beckett Starr met face to face with his informant, do you?
Whether they met face to face or not, I have no doubt in it, but again, their credibility I have plenty.
So assuming Beckett Starr did meet this confidential informant in person, she would certainly be in a better position to evaluate that person's credibility than you would, right?
I guess you could say that. I'm not really sure, but again, I do happen to question this witness's credibility as a reader, Beckett failed to at all explain why they were held in anonymity to me.
By your own words, though, when it comes to interviews, there's no substitute for eye contact and in-person interactions, correct?
Yeah, I agree.
And whether you think it would matter or not, Beckett Starr would have the benefit of face-to-face interaction with this confidential informant, correct?
Beckett would have that benefit, but also Beckett hid any information about this source from the rest of us, which clouds the judgment as a reader.
So yes.
Yeah, as far as I know.
You do acknowledge that Beckett Starr is just a high school student, correct?
Although Beckett is just a high school student, Beckett did their best to get their article past the high school level to the national level by doing things like throwing a link to their article in practically every Facebook comment section I could find.
As a high school student, though, in your own words, you agree that the standards, the ethical standards are lower, correct?
I agree they're lower, but it's also that Beckett superseded the standards for a high school journalist in the actions they took.
Now, Beckett Starr appeared on your show, Part of the Matter, correct?
Yeah, I had Beckett on my show, like I said, to try to correct some of the mistakes she made.
And you asked Angel Francisco to appear on your show as well, correct?
I did, but unfortunately, I think Angel was too spooked by their experience with the media with Beckett to be confident enough to call my show.
So you never had the chance to talk face to face with Angel, did you?
Sadly, because of Beckett, I wasn't able to.
You state that there is no reason that Angel would have to start the fight, correct?
Yeah, from what I was able to tell, there is.
But you've never talked to Angel, have you?
I'm not.
And you never went face to face with Shelby Banks either, did you?
Unfortunately, I didn't have it with Shelby. I was able to even tell just from reading Beckett's article, there are some questions there.
So despite never meeting either of them face to face, you're concluding that Angel must be telling the truth about what happened, but Shelby Banks isn't, correct?
Yeah, that is what I've been able to conclude from Beckett's article and my interactions with Beckett.
Isn't that exactly what you're criticizing Beckett Starr for doing?
Not at all, ma'am.
Making assumptions without talking to both sides?
You see, ma'am, it's like comparing apples and oranges. You see, Beckett is presenting the reader with completely new facts, whereas I'm just critiquing the facts that have been poorly presented to me.
After talking with Beckett Starr,
That's correct.
you assume that he's telling the truth.
But that Beckett Starr is telling the truth.
I'm sorry, after not talking to Angel Francisco, you assume that she's telling the truth.
That is what I've been able to ascertain. That's correct.
All right, further questions?
Mr. Hartman, with your over 20 years of experience, can you explain some of the common mistakes Beckett made with that anonymous source?
Well, yeah, like I've said, it's that they didn't reveal to the reader why they were kept anonymous, which prevents the reader from making their own assumptions about the credibility. Additionally, in a high school story, it's just a bit odd to see an anonymous source.
Are all journalists at every level held accountable for their journalistic ethics?
Yes, no matter what. I don't care how old you are, how big or small the paper you're writing for is. Your number one priority as a journalist is to uphold these ethical standards.
Did Beckett uphold these ethical standards?
Not in the slightest.
And would you have published this article?
No, never.
No further questions.
Very briefly.
Just to clarify one last time, is the code of ethics legally enforceable?
Although it's not legally enforceable, I think frankly it's cowardly to go about it like that. I think as journalists, we are the bastion of truth. We are what informs the public. And to say that because I'm not bound by the law to be ethical and truthful, I don't need to, goes against the entire point of being a journalist.
So that's a no.
That is a no.
Thank you.
With that, the blanket press.
Can I step down,
You
Your Honor?
may step down. You have another witness, right?
No, you're on.
Okay, all right. Counsel?
Your Honor, the defense calls the entry for please. Please identify yourself to the jury.
Hello, I'm Kennedy Quick. I'm an English teacher at Shattuck High and I'm also the faculty advisor for the Guardian.
What kind of training and experience do you have in journalism?
Well, I graduated summa cum laude at the University of Maryland and I worked for about 32 years at the Brooklyn Big Morning Post in New York City.
What brought you to Oneida?
Well, my son and his wife live there and they just gave birth to my very first granddaughter, so I decided to come over there for a visit.
And what made you decide to stay?
Well, while I was visiting, I learned that Shattuck was hiring for a teacher, and because I'd grown pretty attached to my granddaughter at that point, I decided to apply and they hired me.
How did you come to be the faculty advisor to the Guardian?
Well, with all my experience in journalism, I couldn't quite get it out of my blood, so I decided to become a faculty advisor.
Could you outline how exactly the Shattuck Guardian operates?
Okay, so there is an editorial board that is composed of 5 student reporters who are ultimately elected by the other student reporters. And when a paper is approved for publication, the editorial board gives its approval and I give the final.
And how many years of experience do you have in journalism?
I have about 32 years.
And do you teach your students about the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics?
Yes, I tend to give a sort of a short lecture based on the Code of Ethics every year.
And is that code widely accepted?
Yes, I would say it is. I've also taught my students that it is very based on the circumstances.
And what lessons do you try to instill in your students?
I always tell my students to double check their facts for accuracy, and because I know what it's like in the real world, that the Code of Ethics is a set of guidelines that varies for these circumstances.
In your capacity as faculty advisor, have you ever rejected a story before?
Yes, I rejected one.
Why was that?
Because it was really critical of a shadow teacher, and I had some sort of fear that it would expose the school to some sort of legal liability.
What is your relationship with Beckett Starr?
In my experience, Beckett has always been thoroughly truthful and very talented. I've always given him the hardest challenges because I know he can handle it. And there was one time where I even gave him a little bit of one-on-one mentoring because the editorial board pushed him down when he wanted to pursue a story.
What can you say about Beckett Starr's performance as a journalist?
He's very thoroughly truthful, and one couldn't ask for a better student reporter.
And what was your initial thinking regarding the two schools hosting a basketball game?
I was pretty excited. They haven't played in many years, and I thought we could get a good story about it.
Did you give Beckett any guidance about how to pursue the story?
I did tell him to take a little bit of a skeptical angle and to dig a little bit deeper so he could reach his full journalistic potential.
Did you attend the basketball game?
Yes, I did.
Where did you sit at that basketball game?
I sat in the front row with my granddaughter because I'm a teacher.
And what did you notice about the behavior of the players in the first half of the game?
Well, prior to the game, the mayor gave sort of reconciliation speech, and that seemed to have an impact on the players. They were pretty cordial to each other, and they even high-fived each other after scoring.
Did that change in the second half?
Yeah, two players who I later learned were Angel and Shelby were going at each other pretty hard. They were tugging at each other's jerseys and fouling each other when the refs weren't looking.
Did you notice anything in particular about the behavior of Angel Francisco?
Yeah.
What was that behavior?
Well, in the third quarter, I was a little bit distracted because my granddaughter had spilled some nachos on my lap, but once I looked up after cleaning them up, I saw Angel look at Shelby in a rather furtive manner, and then Angel elbowed Shelby in the nose.
Okay. And was this how the fight began?
Yes.
And did this appear to be accidental or intentional?
Well-
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Assistant, go ahead.
Your Honor, Kennedy Quick is not testifying to the truth of the matter asserted, but rather to her own views of how the game went that night and the actions of Angel Francisco.
I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can you tell me what happened after that?
After that, a bunch of people came out of the bleachers and a bunch of fights broke out. And since I had my 6-year-old granddaughter with me, I just wanted to keep her out of harm's way, so we left.
And what did you do after leaving the game?
After that, I called Beckett and I told him my view of the story, but because I had a little bit of a gap in my story, I also encouraged him to get other witness accounts.
What happened next?
After that, he proceeded to write an article about this event, and I reviewed it and I approved it for publication.
And what materials have you reviewed prior to your testimony here today?
I have reviewed the witness statements of Bobby Day, Angel Francisco, Beckett Starr, and Shelby Banks.
And in your 32 years of experience in journalism, is your understanding of the Code of Ethics and the materials you have reviewed, do you have an opinion as to whether the story Beckett wrote and you approved for publication satisfies the Code of Ethics?
Yeah, his story meets the Code of Ethics.
Could you please explain the basis for this opinion?
Well, the code tells you to verify your information and to also use original sources whenever possible. Beckett has my views as well as his own and a view from Shelby Banks and as well as a confidential source. You don't have to use every single point of view, especially when you're under a tight deadline.
Did Beckett make any attempt to get information from the other side of the story?
I don't believe so.
Any side of the story from Angel Francisco?
Oh, yes, he did talk to Bobby Day.
And who is Bobby Day?
Bobby Day is Angel Francisco's coach.
And what about Beckett's reliance on the anonymous source?
I think Beckett used his anonymous source properly. We know that his anonymous source has a bit of acquaintances with Angel Francisco, and the confidential source had a legitimate reason to stay anonymous. I wouldn't want to get on Angel's bad side either.
What is your overall conclusion?
That is completely appropriate to publish that story from Beckett.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Quick. I'm Isaac. I'll just be asking you a few questions today. Now, Ms. Quick, nothing should ever stand in the way of double checking facts, should it?
No.
And today we're here in court about an article penned by one of your students, right?
Yes, we are.
Would you recognize that document?
Yes, I would.
Permission to approach the witness.
May.
Let the record reflect I'm showing the opposing counsel exhibit 1, previously admitted. There's a document in front of you. Now, Ms. Quick, in your position employed at Shattuck High School, you give the final thumbs up for every article that's published, right?
Yes, I do.
Including this one in front of you.
Yes.
And the school shares responsibility for everything that's published, isn't that right?
Yes.
Now, at first you knew all the facts should be double checked. So you instructed Beckett Starr to double check your side of the story, right? And just your side of the story, correct?
Yeah.
And you didn't really have the best view of the game though, given that whole bunch of fiasco with the grant on it,
Yeah,
right?
that is also why I let him know to get other witnesses.
But your perspective is still given to Beckett Starr
Yes.
and included in the story.
Yes.
And further, you said later on in your affidavit that you didn't explicitly require Beckett Starr to double check the facts for it. Isn't that right?
You could say that.
You did say that. And in your own words in regards to journalism ethics, you called them specific points on direct, correct?
Yes.
And you also said that you only teach your students journalism ethics in a sort of short lecture at the beginning of the year, right?
Yes.
Now, moving forward, you also said in your affidavit that double checking the facts is always important in journalism, right?
Yes, correct.
Despite instructing Beckett Starr not to double check the facts further.
Your Honor, objection, this is outside the scope. She failed to mention that Beckett Starr had to double check the facts, didn't specifically instruct him not to double check the facts.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll re-ask my question. And this is despite of you not instructing Beckett Starr to double check the facts.
I figured he knew what he was doing.
And I understand you were given the opportunity to review Beckett Starr's affidavit prior to being here today.
Yes, I was, because I am his faculty advisor.
Exactly. So you would know precisely that Beckett Starr didn't have a good view of the game either, did he? Yet his point of view is still included in this article as well.
Yes,
On
because he did
top
observe.
of yours.
Yeah, because he did observe the event himself.
But you are in understanding that his point of view was not the best, was it?
You have to answer yes or no.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Thank you. And Shelby Banks is also featured in this article in front of you, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
Wouldn't you agree with me that when you don't look into a witness's background or motives, you can't properly rely on that witness? Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't ask Beckett Starr any questions about Miss Banks when reviewing this article, did you?
I did not.
You didn't ask Beckett Starr any questions about any other of his witnesses either, did you?
No, I don't think I did.
So you did not really dive into the background or motives of any of his witnesses. And like you said before, Beckett Starr shouldn't have properly relied on those witnesses then, should he?
I think he could have relied on those sources because they were all present at the game.
So are you retracting your statement previously said? I'll re-ask my previous question. You wouldn't rely on witnesses without knowing their background and motives, correct?
No, I don't think he would.
Thank you. And moving forward, if there was bias, because Beckett Starr conducted interviews, he would have known about it, right?
Yeah, he would have.
So you reviewed Beckett Starr and Shelby Banks' affidavits. So you know in Beckett Starr's, he made it clear that he was familiar with alleged bullying against Shelby Banks that caused her to leave Table High School, right?
Yes.
He knew about that.
Yes, he did.
And in Shelby Banks' affidavit, you remember her calling Angel Francisco a horrible person, among other things.
Yeah, I believe so.
And he was familiar with that.
Mhm.
So he was
Was.
familiar with this bias.
Yes, he was.
And quotes from Shelby Banks were still published in the article, weren't they?
They were.
Right in front of you. And in the end, yes or no, Ms. Quaid,
Yes.
you published this article on behalf of Shattuck High School.
Yes, I did. Because I believe it meets the code of ethics.
So that is a yes.
Yes.
No further questions at this time.
Is this the high school article?
Yes, it is.
And did Beckett talk to multiple sources?
Yes, he did.
And did Beckett get a source from Angel's side?
Yes, he got Bobby Day's source, who is Angel Francisco's coach.
And to your knowledge, did Beckett Starr misrepresent info from his sources?
I don't believe he did.
No further questions.
Briefly cross your order. So speaking to Angel Francisco's side of the story, Beckett Starr interviewed Bobby Day,
Yes, he did.
but he didn't interview Angel Francisco. Is that correct?
No, because I believe Shelby told me not to.
So it's correct.
Yes,
This article is about Angel Francisco, is it not?
it is.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may be seated.
The defense calls Beckett started this thing. I'm sorry. Oh, sure, sorry. The defense calls Shelby Bates to the stand. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Shelby Dykes. I'm a basketball player for Shattuck High School.
And where do you go to school?
I started out at Table Rock, but I transferred halfway through my freshman year to Shattuck.
And what do your parents do?
Well, my father owns a handful of local businesses, and my mom is a councilwoman as well as an artist.
And how do you know Angel?
Oh, well, I met Angel when I was 6. We played on the Bears basketball team together, and we became friends, as many kids do. I also was played at Shattuck with her for a little bit.
Why did you join basketball?
Well, my parents really wanted me to, and I did too. They thought it would just be very proactive for me, and I agreed. I also really like art.
And did you enjoy basketball?
I did, but Angel never really made it easy.
And how so?
Well, it kind of all started out when we were younger at basketball camp. That's the only thing she would ever talk about. It made it really hard to have a conversation with her. It was very monotonous and just kind of difficult to talk. And then things escalated my freshman year of high school when I made the freshman team, or not the freshman team, my apologies. I made the junior varsity team and Angel made the varsity team. I'm a lot younger than most of my classmates, so keeping up physically has always been a little bit challenging, and Angel never made me forget that.
And did Angel ever bully or taunt you?
Yes, multiple times. It all started out when I only made the junior varsity team and she made the varsity team. As I said, she never really let me forget it. There was also an incident after the bus tipping incident.
And were there incidents? So there were incidents outside of practice.
Yes, there were.
And could you explain what happened at the bus tipping incident?
Yeah, I believe a handful of Table Rock students tipped over a Shattuck bus after a prank that Shattuck had pulled on Table Rock.
And was Angel involved in this incident?
From my knowledge, I just saw her running away, so I cannot say if she was directly involved or not. I just saw her fleeing the scene.
Mm-hmm. And how did you meet Beckett Starr?
Oh, well, I started writing a comic strip, and Beckett really took a liking to it, so he published it in the Shattuck newspaper.
And what were your first impressions of the reconciliation game?
I was a little worried about it. See, after the bus tipping incident, Angel and Coach Day had just assumed that it was me who had tattled, even though there were a handful of other students there. And a lot of other varsity members had surrounded me, pushing me to the ground, throwing basketballs at me. So, of course, naturally, after my experiences with the plaintiff, I was very concerned about the game.
And why were you so concerned about Angel's motives in the game?
Well, as I previously mentioned, just the multiple accounts of bullying and all of the torture she's put me through the past couple of years. There couldn't have been a good motive, especially because she just wanted the glory of beating Shattuck.
And what was it like at the game prior to the incident?
It was great. I was shutting down Angel. I wanted to show her that I had been working super hard on my skills and prove to her that I was an equally as good player.
And what was Angel like at the game?
I mean, she was super aggressive, which made me very nervous. She was throwing elbows and just way out of line, in my personal opinion.
And what caused the incident?
Well, Angel was going in for a layup, and she completely knocked me over to the ground super aggressively. And based on my previous experiences with her, I was super concerned for my safety. She had physically harmed me multiple times, and this was just another one of those instances. So regrettably, I punched her, which I do regret and is very tragic and should have never happened.
However, I was acting in self-defense because of the years of bullying and torment she has put me through.
So you felt like you were defending yourself?
Yes, 100%.
Was a foul called?
On Angel, yes, a flagrant foul was called on her.
And what happened after Angel was called for the flagrant foul?
She went crazy. She got all up in the referee's faces, started yelling at them, cussing them out. And right after she started doing that, Table Rock fans fled from the stands, and I believe some Shattuck people did too, but it was an all-out brawl.
Was anyone hurt?
Yeah, I had a bloody nose. 3 of my teammates and friends went to the hospital. It was just not a good situation.
And were you part of the news article that Beckett Starr wrote about this incident?
Beckett did interview me, yes.
And do you know if Angel was interviewed?
I don't believe she was.
And do you believe that Angel intended to cause a fight?
I do. After everything that she had done to me, there just couldn't have been a good motive, like I've previously stated.
Could there have been any danger in Beckett Starr interviewing Angel?
Yes, I fully believe so. That is why I warned Beckett not to interview her. Because of all the physical torture she's put me through, I was concerned for his safety as well. I was merely trying to protect him.
From what you saw, what started the fight?
It was Angel's interactions with the referee, from the cussing out, yelling.
And if permission to approach the witness.
Nay.
Exhibit 7, I believe it has already been introduced. Is it?
Oh, yes, it's in my.
Is there on the screen? Attorney opposing counsel has marked for evidence as exhibit 7. Could you identify the document in front of you?
Yes, this is the Table Rock School's athletic policy.
And could you please read aloud the section on fighting? It is on the 3rd page.
Yes. Student athletes are expected to exercise self-control. Fighting will not be tolerated. Punishments for incidents in athletics will be up to the athletic review committee.
And what does this say about officials?
My apologies, I'm just trying to find that. Do you know where that is?
We can move on.
Okay.
And did Angel comply with the requirements of the no fighting section as explained in the exhibit?
No, she did not. She pushed me. And well, she bowled me over during the layup, and she also pushed our team captain.
And did you or your family experience any impacts from this story being published?
relevance.
This is relevant because it will show that the truthfulness of the witness, because even though this article has hurt her family, she is willing to testify today.
Could you repeat the question?
Did you or your family experience any impacts from this story being published?
Yes. People were boycotting my father's restaurants. They were trying to get my mother recalled from being a councilwoman, and they even showed up to my house.
And yet, with all those bad reactions, why are you here testifying today?
I just wanted the truth to come out. I wanted everyone to know how much of a bully Angel truly was. I wanted everyone to know how she had impacted my life in such a negative light, and the potential dangers of her putting together this game and behaving in the way she did.
Thank you. No further questions.
Yes.
So good afternoon, Shelby Banks. You punched Angel Francisco, didn't you?
I did. I would never deny that, and I do regret my actions.
And as you just read aloud on direct, you read the fighting section of the school athletic policy, correct?
Yes.
And is punching someone against the school athletic policy that you just read, Ms. Banks?
No, but it was in my self-defense after being targeted after being targeted by the plaintiff multiple times physically.
So you're saying that punching is not fighting, Ms. Banks?
In this context, it was self-defense.
And Beckett Starr interviewed you about the game for his article, correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Exhibit 1.
Yes.
Let the record reflect I am showing it to the counsel. Here you go. Now read along with me, starting here. This article states that, quote, the fight erupted in the 3rd quarter when Angel Francisco was allegedly punched by Shelby Banks. after Angel committed what was clearly a flagrant foul. Did I read that correctly, Ms. Banks?
Yes, you did.
And have you read this article, Ms. Banks?
I have.
Now, take another quick glance at it. Do you see the word allegedly used to describe anyone else's actions in this article?
I do. Or no.
You don't see anything so far?
Not so far.
Yet you know you punched Angel Francisco, right?
Yes, but these are not my words, so I have no control over what was written here.
But there's nothing alleged about that punch, right?
Again, I have no control over what's written in this article.
So Beckett Starr gave you the benefit of the doubt right there in his article, didn't he?
I don't know.
And as you just said, nowhere else in the article it says the word allegedly except for in that one part.
From the portion I was able to read it without wasting too much time, yes.
So Beckett Starr didn't give Angel Francisco that same benefit of the doubt by using the word allegedly, did he?
Not that I am, sorry, could you rephrase that question? Or not rephrase it, just repeat it.
Yes, no problem. So Beckett Starr didn't give Angel Francisco, based on what is in that article, the same benefit of the doubt by using the word allegedly, right?
From what I read, no.
And now let's go back to that interview. Miss Banks, Beckett Starr approached you, right?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, Beckett Starr was familiar with you being allegedly bullied by some players on the Table Rock team?
Possibly.
And in fact, because of this alleged bullying, you don't really like Angel Francisco, right?
When someone physically harms you, I generally stand on the ground that you are under no, you don't have to like them, and particularly no.
Yes, exactly. You even called Angel Francisco a horrible person, right?
I mean, if you go as far as throwing basketballs at someone or taunting them for making the JV team as a freshman, then
And on game day, you claimed you were going to do everything within the rules to shut Angel Francisco down, right?
yes, within the rules of basketball.
Now, Miss Banks, is punching within the rules of basketball?
No, but it was self-defense from the plaintiff.
Yet Beckett Starr still chose to include your perspective in his article?
Yeah, again, self-defense after the plaintiff had actively bullied me and made physical aggressions towards me.
And you even explicitly told Beckett Starr not to interview Angel Francisco, right?
This was because I was specifically concerned about the safety of the interviewer because of the aggressions that Angel has shown before.
But you also believe that Angel Francisco is a liar, correct?
Yeah, because of all of the hardships I've been put through, from being blamed for telling somebody that I reported her for being involved in the bus incident, which is completely untrue.
So I apologize, but you believe Miss Francisco is a liar, correct?
Yeah.
And Beckett Starr ultimately decided not to interview Angel Francisco as you testified in direct, right?
Yes. Because of physical harm. Sorry, let me clarify. I told him not to because I was worried for people's safety.
Yes, you told Beckett Starr not to interview Angel and then he didn't, correct?
Yes, to keep people safe.
And now let's talk about your relationship with the defendant Beckett Starr. You knew him before all of this went down, right?
I mean, we wrote together in the paper. I did the comic strips.
So you both contributed to the school newspaper, as you just said, right?
Yes.
And there were many, many other players at the game, but Beckett Starr handpicked you for his article, right?
It's because I was directly involved in the incident after being targeted by the plaintiff.
So Beckett Starr approached you, right?
Yes.
And Beckett Starr interviewed you despite your personal relationship?
I mean, what we have of a personal relationship, which is very little, sure, yes.
And your clear bias against Angel Francisco?
My clear bias after being bullied by her? Would you have bias from someone after being bullied by them?
So you're not biased against Angel Francisco?
I am, but that's only after multiple aggressions and being bullied by someone. Do you know how much physical torment I've faced from her?
I really apologize for your situation here, Miss Banks, but I just have a couple more questions, okay? Do you think she's a horrible person, right?
I don't believe I said horrible person in my statement directly. You can correct me if I am wrong.
Well, previously you testified to my previous question that you did call her a horrible person, so I'm just going off that in your affidavit.
If it isn't directly in my affidavit, then I will agree to that, but if it is not, then I will not agree to that.
So it is not in your affidavit, Ms. Banks.
Okay, sorry, repeat the question?
Calling Angel Francisco a horrible person is not included in your affidavit as you stated, right?
I asked you if it was.
And it is.
It is? Okay, then yeah, because she has clearly made an attempt to threaten me and bully me throughout my entire life. That doesn't quantify a good person.
Council, move on, please.
And you also called her a con artist,
Yeah,
and you think she's arrogant?
I would agree. She's been treated like a star and elevated by her coach every step of the way.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. And Beckett Starr still chose to publish your side of the story in his article, correct?
Again, I have no control over what Beckett Starr publishes or doesn't publish.
Of course, Ms. Banks, thank you. No
Thank
further
you.
questions.
Just two brief questions. In exhibit 1 in front of you, will you read?
Oh, babe.
Well, seeing as
Yes.
Seeing as exhibit 1 is now in front of you, will you read the 4th paragraph and the last 2 lines?
Francisco then organized a senior service project to bring the two schools back together. And finally, it was Francisco who instigated the fight at the basketball game she had organized, which a source tells me may have been the plan all along.
As a direct witness, when did fans come down from the stands starting the fight?
After Angel had berated the ref in a non-appropriate manner.
Thank you. No further questions.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
You may be seated.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The defense calls Beckett Starr to this. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Beckett Starr.
Where do you live?
I live in Table Rock.
And where do you go to school?
I go to school at Shattuck High School.
What activities do you participate in at your high school?
I wasn't really into athletics that much, so I decided to pursue the newspaper instead.
Did you have a particular beat that you enjoyed in the newspaper?
Yes, after I penned my first article about corruption in student government, I realized that I had a real knack for investigative journalism.
Do you plan to pursue journalism after high school?
Yes, I do. And in order to achieve that, I've been going to camps where I've learned basic interviewing techniques, investigative techniques, and just overall journalistic ethics.
Did you ever want to write about the relationship between Table Rock and Shattuck High School?
For a while, it didn't really interest me. It just seemed like a minor rivalry, but that all changed after the bus tipping incident.
Why did this incident interest you?
Because Shattuck football team bus was tipped over by a bunch of Table Rock players. And this was overall really uncommon for the area because property damage like this doesn't happen that often. So I thought that'd be a good story to write on.
Did you write an article about this?
Unfortunately, I was not able to.
Were you still interested in the rivalry after this bus tipping?
My interest in it really waned out up until Angel's Senior Service Project
What was his project?
to reinstate athletic competition between the two schools.
What did you think about this?
I thought that it was kind of interesting at first, given the history that we've had. In fact, they haven't been around for a while.
And what made you think that?
Given the history between the two schools and just overall that, I thought it could be an interesting and newsworthy story.
What did you think about Angel's involvement in the project?
I thought that after the history that Angel had at Table Rock, given the fact that she was suspended and stuff like that, I thought that was a really interesting idea to track to it.
And did your newspaper investigate the project?
No, I think it's because the board of editors and the overall boosters and coaches probably didn't really want to shut down this rivalry from coming back. So.
Did you still keep an eye on it?
Yes, I did. I followed up with Angel.
Do you still pay attention to Angel?
I went to all their board meetings and stuff like that. So.
And did you have any encouragement or advisement with this?
Yes, Candy Quick advised me to do it.
And what were your thoughts when the school board decided to allow athletic competitions between Table Rock and Shattuck?
I thought it was a safety risk at first, considering the history that the two schools had, but no one really seemed to care.
And then with the reconciliation game, what were your initial impressions of the game itself?
My initial impressions were that it was going to be a very physical game, given the history that the two schools have had, and that it was the first one in a while.
Would you say that it was aggressive?
Yes, I'd say out of the gate, it was very aggressive.
How so?
Throughout the whole game, players were being overtly aggressive to each other, but Angel was being especially aggressive for Shelby.
What did you think about this?
I thought that given the history that Shelby had with Angel, this was an interesting thing to have happen at the game.
What do you mean history?
Given the fact that Shelby transferred from Table Rock to Shattuck for her freshman year after being bullied by Angel, that it was overall something that was interesting.
So when exactly did the fight break out?
Early in the third quarter,
And what happened to cause the fight?
Angel was driving in for a layup, and then as she went in, she fumbled the ball and ran through Shelby. And she was mad after she did this, so she pushed another Shattuck player out of the way. And after this, Shelby stepped in to defend them.
And then what happened after that?
Then then everybody came in, and then it was just pandemonium for the next 10 minutes.
And what happened when the fight ended?
The injured and uninjured were separated, and 6 people went to the hospital.
Did you look into more into the situation after the game?
I tried to look into it after the game, and I followed up with some people, but the board really wasn't giving me permission to write about it yet until I got a phone call from my anonymous source.
Tell me about this phone call.
In my phone call with the anonymous source, they pretty much just gave me information about Angel and her plans all along, and the board, after they heard this, authorized me to go write it and relieve me of my duties.
Could you tell us more about the information that you gathered from your source?
I was able to gather from my source that Angel had a plan to start the fight, and that she was someone, and that my informant was someone close to Angel.
How did you know that they were close to Angel?
Because I was able to deduce, once I promised to give them anonymity, that they were someone close, given that they helped gather signatures, that I looked through old yearbooks to figure out who they were, and through social media accounts to verify their identity.
So how did you feel about the credibility of this source?
I felt that they were very credible, given the fact that they helped Angel with their senior service project, and I felt like I could trust them in order for writing my article.
Council, let me just remind you of the motion in limine that was ordered prior to trial.
Correct. If I'm correct, that's just about revealing the identity of the source, correct?
That's correct, but you can open the door.
And what information did your source provide about Angel?
Just really information that Angel had planned to start the fight all along.
And what did you do from there?
After that, I went to go interview someone who was in the fight, so I interviewed Shelby.
And how did you know Shelby?
She wrote a comic strip for the Shattuck Guardian.
And what information did Shelby provide?
She provided me really just confirming my story and what I saw.
Did you ever interview Angel?
No, because Shelby kind of helped to advise me against it.
So did you get any perspective from Table Rock?
Yes, I interviewed Angel's coach, Bobby Day.
And what did you and Coach Day discuss?
Just what would happen to Angel.
And what information did you receive from Coach Day?
That it was really already handled and that it was no longer newsworthy, essentially what he said.
And did Quick approve of your article?
Yes, after a quick reading.
And do you stand by the reporting that you did on this story?
Yes, I did.
Did you receive a journalism scholarship after publication?
I did.
Did your pursuit of the journalism scholarship affect your work on this story?
No, it did not.
Before I begin, may I inquire how much time I have remaining?
Yes, you have 8.5 minutes.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Stock, you're confident in your journalistic abilities, aren't you?
I am.
And so would you agree with me that in general, if someone has a negative experience with someone, it could affect your opinion of them?
In the sense that if they have a negative opinion about someone, it can already affect them.
If
No,
you have a
so-
negative experience with someone, it would affect your opinion of
Are
them?
you talking about Shelby?
Nope, just in general.
Well, I mean, it varies by person to person, but it could.
And would you also agree with me it's important to interview original sources?
And I did. So yes, I would say so.
You didn't interview Angel.
I interviewed Shelby, I interviewed Bobby Day, I interviewed Kenny Quick, I had my anonymous source, and I had my own personal view. So I had a wide variety of sources that were there that night.
Sure. When talking about Angel Francisco's own personal motives, like you did in your article, she would be the original source. Am I correct?
She could be.
She would be if it's about her personal motives.
Okay.
And instead, you interviewed Shelby.
I interviewed Shelby because I knew her and I knew that she was in the fight, and I knew that I could get her life testimony.
And she was a main component in your article.
Among my other sources.
This is the same Shelby Banks that claims to have been bullied by Angel.
Yes.
And you were aware of this previous experience with Angel before your publication of the article.
Yes, I was.
And you still published her opinion.
I did among the other opinions that I gathered throughout all my other investigative journalism.
You didn't interview any of the players.
I didn't interview other players, but I interviewed their coach, who I thought would be a more mature adult and gave me a more reliable view. And I interviewed someone who helped Angel with their project. I interviewed people on both sides.
When you interviewed Bobby Day, though, you didn't ask him about the game itself. You asked about what punishments Angel received. Am I correct?
That was one of the aspects.
That was the only aspect. Am I?
That
Yes.
was the aspect.
And you didn't interview any other referees
I wasn't able to.
or any officials at the game
I wasn't able to.
or the athletic directors.
I wasn't able to.
And the publishing of the article happened pretty fast after the game, didn't it?
It happened a few days after the game.
And you finished the article the same day you interviewed your main source, Shelby.
It was also after I interviewed my other sources that I used as well.
Sure. Just after your main source, Shelby, that same day you finished it.
After I finished interviewing Shelby, I did finish writing my article.
And you brought it to the editorial board, like you're required to do, but they were worried about the accusations the article contained, right?
They were.
And so you took it to your advisor, Kennedy Quick,
I did.
and she approved it with only a single rating.
She did.
No questions asked.
They did.
She didn't ask you to double check your facts,
As I already had, so.
but she didn't ask you to further double check your facts
No, she didn't.
or about any of the content of the article itself.
Well, as I had a wide variety of sources, they trusted the content.
So after a single glance, she allowed it to be published.
Because of the wide variety of sources that I collected and the fact that I had already gone through them, yes.
And so this first draft, immediately after Kennedy Quick's glance over, it went to publishing.
And I believe it did.
In the article, you state Shelby allegedly punched Angel Francisco. Am I correct?
I believe I did.
But you saw Shelby's punch.
This was from the facts that I was presented. So
Sure, you saw Shelby's punch.
this was from the everything in the article was from the facts that I was presented.
Okay, so the facts you presented were Shelby telling you she punched Angel. Yes.
The facts that I was presented are what are in the article.
I'm asking you about, did Shelby tell you that she punched Angel?
I believe she did, but what I wrote in the article is the facts that I was presented at the time,
And you include yourself as an eyewitness, don't you?
as I was at the game.
But you saw Shelby punch Angel.
I saw the altercation occur.
And I quote, Shelby stepped in with the right hook to Angel's nose. In response to that right hook, the bench is cleared onto the court. Am I correct?
After Angel had attacked players on Shattuck.
In response to that right hook, bench is emptied. Is that correct?
I believe that is what it says.
And anywhere else in the article, you do not use allegedly, except when talking about Shelby Banks.
Not from my memory.
And you were worried about being able to pay for college, weren't you?
As anybody going into college is.
Of course, college is a stressful thing. You were in desperate need for a big scoop.
It would benefit my chances.
And I quote, you stated, only a big scoop would keep a college scholarship out of the hands of a muscle-bound dimwit. Am I correct?
I believe I was also told by Kennedy Quick that it would benefit my chances.
Sure. But you did say that you need to keep a scholarship out of the hands of a muscle-bound dimwit?
That was kind of a joke that I said at the time.
Sure. By just asking, by saying muscle-bound dimwit, did you mean a student athlete?
I was just saying that was kind of a joke at the time, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm not really the athletic kind of person, but that was really more of a joke than anything else.
Yeah, you don't know very much about sports, do you?
Well, I worked at the sports desk for much of my senior year, so I know quite a bit.
But you don't like sports.
I've never really played sports. So.
And remind me, you didn't interview Angel.
I interviewed Bobby Day and someone who helped Angel. And
Did you interview Angel?
I was not able to.
You didn't even, you weren't able to, you just didn't ask her.
I also was presented with reasonable reasons not to.
From Shelby Banks.
Given her history, it was reasonable.
And at the game, Shelby punched Angel Francisco. And you saw that, am I correct?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Oh,
Do you want me to repeat that question?
Yes, please.
At the game, you saw Shelby Banks punch Angel Francisco.
I believe I saw an altercation occur.
And Shelby Banks told you she punched Angel Francisco.
What's in the article is what I was told.
I'm so sorry. Did Shelby Banks tell you, or did she not tell you that she punched Angel
I believe
Francisco?
I've said now that what I heard was just what's in the article. So
Yes or no, please, Mr.
Can you answer the
Yes.
question, please?
yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Just one question. Who was Angel's advisor throughout the duration of the trial?
Bobby did.
Did you talk to Bobby?
Yes, I did.
Never free freedom.
It has to be limited to,
Absolutely. You talked to Bobby Day about Angel's punishment, is that correct?
In order to get a Table Rock perspective also.
But am I correct? Yes or no, please? You talked to Bobby Day only about Angel's punishment she received.
I don't believe it was necessarily only about the punishment, but yes, I did talk to Bobby Day.
you may be somebody. So we have closing argument. Are we ready for closing argument?
Your Honor, plaintiff side requests the allotted 3-minute recess.
Take a 3-minute recess.
Yes.
Well, it's funny you asked to practice.
That's true.
Did you see the time on this?
Yes. Okay. Thought about 30 seconds. Your Honor, time's up. Time's up.
Oh, okay, counsel, you could take your seat, please. Thank you. Never did use that. I didn't need. We could have quiet in the courtroom, please. Counsel, are
May
you
I
ready?
proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. You know why we're here today. Defamation that led to a promising young student athlete losing her dream scholarship that meant everything to her for her future. May it please the court. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my co-counsel and I have represented the plaintiff, Angel Francisco, to remind you that reckless disregard for the truth has consequences. Now, throughout the course of today's trial, you've been given a glimpse at the true story A bright-eyed, involved high school student, Angel Francisco proposed a reconciliation basketball game between her Table Rock High School and crosstown counterpart Shattuck High. Now it's crosstown. You understand that this is a passionate game, but emotion ran particularly high for Shelby Banks. At the turn of the third quarter, after Angel had gone for a layup, Miss Banks became angry, and she punched Angel square in the face. Then Angel pushed another player out of self-defense, mistaking her to be Shelby Banks. Angel soon after left the basketball court, not wanting any further involvement in that altercation. This is because Shelby Banks had set an all-out brawl in motion that involved players and fans from both sides. And that was never, ever part of the plan for this reconciliation game put together by Angel. But Beckett Starr took another tale and ran with it, and boy did he want the story badly. After being sentenced to the sports desk, Beckett just wanted some time in the spotlight again, and he sure made it, at the expense of Angel Francisco. However, in writing this article, Beckett Starr made several glaring journalistic errors that distinguish his work as defamation by standards of the law. First and foremost, the information published in the article was false. Angel in no shape or form pre-planned for this altercation to occur, and no matter what reason the defense may conjure up for her doing so, it just doesn't make sense. Why would she sabotage her own reconciliation, putting her senior project grade and her community reputation on the line? And further, no one is outright denying that Angel Francisco may have fouled Shelby Banks. We know it was an intense game. Players from both sides have been fouling for it. But a rulebook recognized foul, no matter how uncommon, does not warrant being punched in return, nor does it constitute starting the fight. It's clear that Shelby Banks started the fight. She admitted to you today that she threw the first punch, but Beckett Starr doesn't care. He wrote what he had to write so he could exonerate Banks and pin it on Angel. It's to write a better story. And Beckett Starr is liable for publishing these lies with Shattuck High School, and most importantly, knowingly doing so. He testified today that he's confident in his journalism skills. So plain and simple, despite knowing what steps to take to write a good article, Beckett Starr instead did the following. He interviewed biased witnesses. He sensationalized the events of January 8th, knowing full well it would put him in the run for a scholarship with the edited exposure. Neither he nor his faculty advisor, Ms. Quick, truly double-checked the facts. The most basic tenets of journalistic integrity were not met. And the entire process of writing this article was full of reckless disregard for the truth. Where did it land us, ladies and gentlemen? Angel Francisco, plaintiff, lost her dream scholarship, and in her eyes, she lost her future. Now, as the plaintiff, the burden of proof rests in our hands today, but the evidence has clearly demonstrated to you, as well as testimony, that the loss Angel Francisco suffered was at the hands of defendants Beckett Starr and Shattuck High School. Her loss is inextricably tied to this article, and they stand liable for defamation. As the plaintiff, it has been our job today to deliver you the full and true story. We've done exactly that. And now we ask you to do one simple job. With preponderance of the evidence, we ask you today to find in favor of Angel Francisco. Deliver Angel Francisco justice. Thank you.
Would it be all right if I position this to face the jury?
Yes, I don't want to block the view between the jury and the other plaintiff's table. That's
When we began this case, we explained that this case is really more about actions than words, and I trust by now that you've seen what we meant. The evidence you've heard clearly shows that Angel Francisco is her own worst enemy. She's bullied her way through life all these years, but never been held accountable until now. Simply put, Beckett Starr and The Guardian merely pulled back the curtain and showed the world the real Angel Francisco. And for that, we should all be grateful, not judgmental. Let's start by reviewing the key jury instructions. First, under instruction number 8, to be defamatory, the communication must be false in a material fashion. So just to address the code of ethics, Technically, this article could violate every single part of the code of ethics. There could be bias in the tone of the article, but if it is not materially false, it cannot be defamation. And this is exactly where the plaintiff's claim falls apart. They complain about these minor discrepancies and quibble over some of the phrasing in the story, but the gist of the reporting is clearly true. Angel Francisco did instigate this fight. The testimony shows that the fans poured down onto the court and started this fight after Angel Francisco berated the ref and pushed the Shattuck team captain. And a confidential informant with clear and established links to Angel Francisco did tell Beckett Starr that Angel planned to start a fight at this game. And in the article, all he states is that a confidential source says that this may be true. He doesn't state this as a fact. He states the exact information that he obtained from this confidential source. And also, in jury instruction number 7, since Angel Francisco is regarded as a limited public figure, she must also show that the defendants either knew their accusations were false or acted with reckless disregard for their truth. There is no proof, even if the information from this confidential source is questionable, that Beckett Starr was aware that it was false. The confidential source is someone with clear and established links to Angel Francisco. She was even part of planning for the reconciliation game. Beckett Starr had every reason to believe that this source was credible, and therefore did not act in reckless disregard for their truth. Since a false statement is a required element of defamation, these materially true statements cannot be defamatory. And that's the same for the statement about the reporting of the bus incident. The story simply reports that Angel was involved in this incident, and she was unquestionably involved as a witness to this incident. And it is undisputed that she was suspended from Table Rock High for 5 games for behavior linked to this incident. The truthfulness of the reporting entirely disposes of the plaintiff's claims. Even if this was not so, it's also clear that neither Beckett Starr nor Shattuck High School acted with reckless disregard for the truth in publishing these statements. Beckett Starr testified that she relied on her own observations, as well as information from at least 4 other sources for her story. A referee at the game, Shelby Banks, the confidential informant, and most importantly, Bobby Day, Angel's own coach, who had a full view of the game at the fight and was her advisor throughout the project. By interviewing Bobby Day, Beckett obtained and reported Angel's side of the story. And given the clear evidence of how Angel bullies and intimidates those who oppose her, remember Shelby Banks' testimony about how Angel threw basketballs at her and shoved her around after the bus incident? It's understandable that Beckett Starr would solicit input from the adult Bobby Day rather than Angel Francisco. Why would she risk the bullying and intimidation that Angel dishes out? Finally, it's important to consider the actual cause of Angel Francisco's alleged damages. She claims that she lost her scholarship and her admission to the University of Manila because of the story in The Guardian. But that's directly contradicted by the fact that videos of the fight were already going viral before Beckett even wrote her article, as attested to by Remy Hartman. Beckett Starr and Shattuck High School cannot be held liable for harms that were not caused by their actions, especially since Angel testified on direct that she was called by the university, meaning she was able to respond to this article and talk about it with the university. At the end of the day, Beckett Starr's and the Shattuck Guardian's reporting on Angel Francisco was materially truthful. They did not act with reckless disregard for truth, and their actions did not cause the harm alleged by the plaintiff. For all of these reasons, we urge you to return the only verdict supported by the evidence, that neither Beckett Starr nor Shattuck High School is liable to the plaintiff for defamation. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
Your Honor, permission for rebuttal.
How much time do we have for closing in general? 5 minutes? You have, I'll give you a minute.
It's 45 seconds left.
Oh, I'm sorry?
It's 48 seconds.
Oh, okay. I thought, all right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I agree with my fellow counselor that today's case is just as much about actions as it is words. Interviewing biased witnesses, not double checking the facts, acting on an ulterior motive, those are actions from Beckett Starr that are worth noting. Now, the important information in this article is materially false. The article claims that an altercation at this reconciliation game was premeditated by Angel Francisco. That is spelled out in the article, that is spelled out as fact, but we know that to be untrue. And among the unreliable witnesses, Shelby Banks, who told you on record she is biased today, was included in this article recklessly by Beckett Starr. And for these reasons, among many others, I ask you to find in favor of plaintiff Angel Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Everybody?